All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to talk about the end of the Japanese Russo War. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, we're going to analyze how the war ended, and we're going to compare how the plan by Russia to attack Japan from ships from the other side of the country was kind of a bad thing. All right, now here's my question to you. If you look at this picture, you'll notice that the big animal, right? It says Russian battleships. And on the little animal, it says, it's pretty hard to see, but it says Japanese torpedo boats. So look at the appearance of the big animal as opposed to the smaller one. What do you think this artist is trying to say about the Russian battleships compared to the uh, Japanese torpedo boats? And then which one actually looks like it's in reality stronger or more powerful? Okay. So think about that. All right. So don't just look at the size, look at the illustrations, look at the expression on the faces of the animals and some of that, and judge it off that. Okay. So pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. Now, Japan tried to attack Russia's fortification, right? The Russians had the fort, and the Japanese kept attacking and attacking, attacking right through the front door. And they failed, but the thing is they kept going, they kept persisting, they kept pushing, and eventually because of their relentlessness they took over the forts, and they were able to gain the position of the forts and then aim the guns that they now had towards the harbor, and any Russian ships that would be coming in now they can just destroy them. Okay, so by the end of 1904 the Japanese Navy sunk every single Russian ship that was sent over there. Okay. Their fleet was completely destroyed. You know, there were still some ships, but some were on the other side of the country, and some were like barely being made or almost close to being finished, but not yet ready. Okay. Now, in January 1905, that man right there you see, that is Major General Stessel. And he basically realized, you know what? All our ships are gone. We have no backup coming. These Japanese soldiers just keep coming. They're relentless. No matter how many we kill, they just keep coming. You know, um, he's like, we're gonna lose this position, lose our territory. We're gonna, lose a lot of men over what time? It's gonna happen. So he basically surrendered to the Japanese, and the Japanese people were surprised. They were stunned because like were surrendered was not thought of like to be in the Russian language because they're tough people. So this caught the Japanese by surprise, and it caught the Russians by surprise because they're like, "Well, dude, what are you doing?" And he told them, "There's no reason. There's no reason to fight because we're gonna kill a bunch of theirs, yeah, but they're gonna kill all our men, and for what? This territory that they're eventually gonna have? I might as well save whatever men I have so we can go home." Now, when Stessel returned home, he was arrested and he was charged with treason. Treason when basically you go against your home country, and he was sentenced to death. Now, some students in class were like, "Well, is that the sentence for death?" Yeah, in most countries around the world, treason, the sentence is always death, right? And I mean, I'm gonna say easy 80% of the world says that the punishment for treason is death. But the thing is, the people of Russia were like, no, 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 you should not kill him. He's actually a hero. He saved the lives of these men. He's right. We had no backup for them, and the Japanese were going to take that territory anyway. And he saved lives. He saved Russian people's lives. So spare him. So later he was pardoned. Okay, and he is seen more of a hero than as a traitor nowadays. So with that, the Russians are distracted. they're deflated. The fight in them is like almost completely gone. And this helps the Russians basically say, you know what, or the Japanese go, you know what, let's start taking over territory. So with Japan having momentum and this desire to keep fighting, they were looking for where else Russia was at and where else Russia controlled. And that was in Manchuria. And the first major battle was at the Battle of Yalu River. And they just were beating the crap out of Russia. Okay. Now, here's the thing though, Russia kind of got lucky because at this time, the winter started coming in. And the winter there is unforgiving. You know, you hear a lot of people say here, like, oh my God, it's 42 degrees, it's so cold, right? But over there, during their winter time, they have like a high. The top temperature is like 3 degrees. The low is somewhere like -12. So it gets pretty cold. And it's so cold that during this war, both sides were like, you guys want to take a break? You guys go to your side, we'll go to our side, and we'll like spend the winter wrapped up in blankets and, keep it warm. Sure, let's do that. So they stopped fighting while the winter was going on. Now, on February 20th, 1905, the winter basically is now tolerable. People are ready to fight. You would think after a couple months, the Russians would have a good plan, great attack plan to how to defeat Japan and things like that. But they didn't. They really didn't. And they got beat out of Mukden and made them retreat. Now, as they retreated, right, the Russians were like, well, we need to take Mukden again, take it over. So they tried again to attack. And this second fight lasted actually a little bit longer. But eventually they lost to Japan again. And now they're really demoralized. Now they're like, oh my gosh, we can't do anything to beat these Japanese. Now the Japanese people, the soldiers are ready. They're pumped. They're ready to go. They're kicking the crap out of Russia. So now they're looking around, going, "All right, now what should we take over? We're beating the Russians, but we should conquer more." And they basically took over South Korea. So again, that adrenaline of the soldiers wanting to fight and things like that—that's key in any war, in any battle. Now, like I said, Japan is winning a ton of battles, but they're also losing a lot of soldiers. Okay, just keep that in the back of your head. Now, Russia, like I said, they're basically out of ships. Some are barely being built and things like that. But there were some ships in the Baltic area. So if you look at that top map, right in that area of water between like Finland and Poland and things like that, um, in that area, that's where the uh, the ships were. So these ships went through there past Sweden, where Norway is, and went up. Now they could have gone down, but then they would have to go all the way around Europe, down Africa, around Africa at the very bottom, come around through India and some of that, and then finally hit um, Japan. So it was just a lot easier to go that way. It's a shorter route, but the thing is, there was a lot of icebergs and things like that in that top area. So if you look at the bottom map, that top area, they had to go navigate all through there and come around. So yeah, it was a shorter trip, but it was more dangerous. They traveled 20,000 nautical miles. Now, just to enlighten you guys a little bit, um, the miles out in sea is different from the miles on land. Okay. If you want to use the miles on land, then they travel 23,016 miles. Okay. So these ships finally make it, right? They finally make it to the peninsula. And on May 27th, 1905, they're fighting against the Japanese and they lose. So, like I gave the example to my students in class. Imagine this: you're fighting somebody, and you're like, "I know I'm going to get my brother. He lives in New York." And your brother gets in a car. He's driving all the way through the country, things like that, nonstop. Right? They finally get here, and they confront the person who was fighting you, and all of a sudden they get knocked out in one punch. You'd be like, "Really? took that long trip, that long trip across the country, taking days, months, things like that, whatever it may be, you know, and then just to get knocked out, so that kind of stuff happened. Okay. And yeah, basically, Japan destroyed another eight battleships for the Russians and killed over 5,000 men. Russia now only had three total ships in that whole country. Only three. And it's at this point, finally at this point, Russia's like, let's talk about peace. Now, both sides lost about 150,000 men. Um, Now, you've heard me say Russia, Japan, things like that, uh, Manchuria, but you never hear me say China, right? Well, here's the thing: China borders Russia, Manchuria, Korea, stuff like that. And because it was just like wrong place, wrong time, 20,000 Chinese civilians were killed during this war. And it wasn't even their war. It was just at where the Chinese towns were and they bordered those countries. Chinese people got killed. Now, journalists from all over the world were taking reports of what's happening in this war and stuff like that. And they covered that, basically reported that Russian soldiers were looting, burning villages, and that these soldiers would, kill and rape women. Okay. And the sad thing is, this happens quite a bit in war. And you're going to hear stuff like this happening during like World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, things like that. Um, it does happen quite a bit. Sad to say, but it does happen. Now, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt, invited both sides. They had told them send representatives to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and let's discuss negotiations for peace. And it took them about 4 months or so to finally come to an agreement. Japan officially won, but now they're broke. They got no money whatsoever. Russia basically accepted responsibility for the war, and they were just devastated. They lost so many soldiers, and their military supply, especially their battleships and navy, was demolished. They only had three ships in the entire country. So yeah, it really hurt them hard. And then also a little history tidbit: Teddy Roosevelt won the Nobel Peace Prize for his role in negotiating peace between the two countries. So here's my question to you. When attacking an area, remember, you're the attacker. Is it wiser to sacrifice so many men just to gain control of an area, like basically like bum rush the front door? Or is it wiser to wait and try to find a weak spot for your attack? Now, I know it sounds pretty obvious, like what should pick, but think about this: soldiers' morale, right? Their desire to fight. Think about their adrenaline, the pump, inside you, the hype to go fight, things like that. And also loyalty, whether they're like, this doesn't sound like a smart thing to do. This is like you're sacrificing us. You know, take all those three things into consideration when you make your decision, and then be sure to write it down. Okay. If you don't know how to start it, the writing prompts on the bottom there for you. So, with that being said, guys, hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this. So, you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.